It's not just that I love Castle of Burgundy, but at 10 years into the hobby, this is the longest lasting game in my collection. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Stefan Feld's Castles of Burgundy. This is a game that's gone through a few editions. There's a new edition coming out by Awakened Realms as well over on GameFound, and this is my favorite Stefan Feld game of all time. It's my second favorite game of all time. It's an absolute masterpiece of a gem, although it may or may not be for you. There's always the possibility that nostalgia is coloring my opinion, although I think at like the 14th highest game on Board Game Geek, it's probably coloring a lot of people's opinions. The Castle of Burgundy is a point salad game. It's a game in which you're going to, across 5 rounds of play, you're going to be rolling your dice, as will the other players, each of them rolling their 2 dice, and then the round die as well, and then you're going to look at your dice, you're going to look at the other player's dice, and you're going to make decisions around what you want to do this turn, what you have to get to first, given the fact that the other players all have certain numbers on their die, they all have workers they can use to modulate the dice, and you're trying to gather the variety of buildings you need to fill out your unique area, which probably should start with a little tile in the middle over there. Basically, what you're doing is you're using 2 dice every single turn. Across 5 rounds of play, you're going to have 5 turns. It's a total of 25 turns. That's 2 dice per turn. That's 50 actions you'll be taking, although plenty of opportunities to get bonus actions as you min-max your way through the experience. You're trying to fill out your unique grid over here, and your unique grid is going to want a little bit of everything, from the ships you're going to acquire in order to gather the goods in order to advance up the round order track, from the various farmlands that can give you large chunks of points if you can get the same creatures into the lands, from the variety of buildings, each of which come with their own little ability that give you little extra actions, grabbing buildings, placing buildings, giving you workers, giving you silverlings, the currency of the game, that currency that you can then spend on the central depot over here to gather extra tiles as well, from the various castle options where you'll play castles down, getting free bonus actions, to the science of technology. The science of the technology will give you a variety of ways to break the rules of the game, giving you flexibility, better trade and rates, just general abilities left, right, and center, and then of course the mines, where you'll be able to earn silverlings every single round. Once again, 5 rounds of play, 5 turns per round, 2 actions per turn. That's the cycle you're going through across the Castle of Burgundy as you slowly wind your way around the track, getting 250 points for the way you efficiently build out your engine, gather points both in-game scoring and end-game scoring. It's all about the actions you take, and those actions, basically every single die is useful for one of 4 actions. You can either spend a die in order to take a tile from the associated depot. I can spend that 3 to gather one of these tiles, placing it into my little... Let's actually plan around what I want to do over here. None of these are particularly appealing. Let's pretend this was a 2. That would make it a little easier for this conversation. I'm going to grab that die with this 3, putting it down into my central depot. I can then spend my 2 in order to put it down onto the board, although it has to touch another tile. It can't. You're going to slowly build out your depot. You're going to slowly build out your castle area, your duchy, whatever it is you're building out over here. So I'm going to spend dice to take tiles, spend dice to place tiles. Those are likely the 2 most common actions you will take. But additionally, you can spend dice in order to sell goods. Whenever you earn these goods, every single round, this die over here is going to determine where that good goes. And once you take that good, which involves when you place a ship, you're going to gather the goods from any one depot, placing it into your goods area. And then you can spend a 3 to sell that good, both scoring points as well as earning a silverling for doing so. You'll have the opportunity to sell piles of goods, earning points for every good and 1 silverling for the entire sale. The last action you can take with your dice is trading it in for 2 workers, which is very helpful because workers will allow you to modify your dice by plus or minus 1 for each worker, and yes, it wraps around. And so whenever you feel a little bit stuck, whenever the board starts to clear out every single round, you will have the opportunity to spend workers to give you a little bit more flexibility in case you didn't plan well around some of the things you have more agency and control over. You see, the central board over here, you don't have as much control. The tiles can be taken from the depots. Other players are competing for the same areas. This whole area might clear out, at which point your 2s and 3s are useless. But on the other hand, if you go ahead and save those 2s and 3s, if you make sure you have a variety of actions over here, different tiles you can place down, different goods you can sell, then you can kind of build towards that end round closure where you know things are getting tighter. You know the board is clearing up. You know the board is getting emptier and there's less and less actions available. But if you make sure you have your own actions, you will still be left with opportunities to move forward. That's basically what you're doing in Castle of Burgundy. Now, there's a bunch of ways you're scoring points in this game. There's going to be every single time you add a farm animal to your little farm there, you're going to score points for the number of animals on that tile. 3 sheep for this tile over here. The good news is when you add that second 3 sheep, because it's the same animal type in the same pasture, you're going to add up all the prior animal types, so this 3 over here is going to score for 6. 3 for the first and 3 for the second. If you add a 4 after that, that next 4 is going to score 10. So it's an escalating degree of scoring if you can load up the same animals every single time. Whenever you go ahead ahead and fill out a region for the first time, you're going to, whenever you completely clear a certain region type, if you fill all your waters, you'll get this tile, which is worth a variable number of points depending on the player count. Every single time you complete a region, you'll be scoring points based on the round you're in. The earlier you complete a region, the more bonus points you'll get. As you can see, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, you'll get bonus points just for completing any region. But you also get points for the size of the region too, so there's this balance of the earlier you complete something, the more bonus points you'll get for the earlier you complete it. The flip side is the larger regions take more time to complete, but they earn you escalating degrees of points. A 6-space region is 21 points. You score that in the second round, that's going to be 21 points plus the 8 points for the round. You get 29 points, and that's why you're going to be scoring 200 plus points in this game, because there's so many ways to score points. Each of the building tiles gives you their own little benefit as far as extra actions they earn you. This building over here gives you an extra action equal to the value of the die. These ones allow you to grab or place blue or green tiles as well. So there's always a degree of something else you can do as you place down things and earn your extra actions. You're going to do that across those 50 actions, across those 5 rounds of play, until eventually you get to the end and a winner is determined. And that is the Castle of Burgundy. There's a bunch of expansions mixed in. There's a bunch of this particular version of the game comes with all the expansions in it as far as different ways you can add things. This tile, for example, is an expansion tile. There's a few expansion tiles you can have, all listed over here. There's a few other expansions, such as trade routes, that you can mix into your experience. But the core idea of Castle of Burgundy is you roll your dice, you place your dice, you take your actions, and you try to efficiently do so before the end of the game. This is a point salad game. Everything you do earns you points. It's about finding the combinations of things that you do to earn you the most points that will determine who wins the game. Let's talk about the game. Ease of play. The rules for Castle of Burgundy are fairly straightforward. There's a lot going on in terms of just the number of stuff happening, but the rules are fairly straightforward. It's fairly easy to understand. I would say the biggest pain is the fact that you frequently have to look up technology tiles in the game. Every single one of these yellow tiles gives you a way to break the game, and once you've played the game enough, yes, you will be able to learn to recognize them, but the iconography on its own, you almost always will have to reference the rulebook the first time you're looking at one of those tiles, and it's a little bit of a pain. It's not a huge pain. You're talking about, depending on the player count, anywhere from 2 to 4 of those coming out around, and then of course the variable marker in the center, so that can change things as well. And so you are looking at not that many rules per turn, but there's a little bit of every turn, every round, you're going to want to announce those to the other players and read them from the rulebook. Past that, I will say the game does run long at higher player counts, and speaking of which, as far as player count goes, this is a 1 to 4 player game. I have never played the solo mode of Castle of Burgundy. I have played this extensively at 2, 3, and 4 players. Like I said already, this game has been in my collection for 10 years now, the longest lasting game in my collection, which means I have had plenty of opportunities to play this game at most player counts, not solo, but almost all the other player counts I have played, not almost all, every other player count other than solo, I have dove into this multiple times. 4 is a player count I do try to avoid. I'm willing to do 4, I've done it before, but primarily when I want to spend time with those 4 people. If I'm trying to choose a game to play that's best with 4 players, this is not that game. Playing this at 4 is a sacrifice. The game comes in significantly longer, and the extra interaction, in my opinion, is not worth it. The interaction in this game primarily comes through the competition of the tiles in the marketplace, and you get that at 2, you get it better at 3. At 4, that extra level of interaction is simply not worth the downtime. 2 and 3 is the sweet spot for me. I love this game at 2, I love it at 3. 4, I will reluctantly play it, and I have not played it solo yet. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, I want everything in this game. Like everything. Every single thing you can get in this game, I want to get my hands on. There's multiple pathways forward as far as the strategy you can take to try to win. As far as what's more efficient. Building up all those technology tiles so you have extra advantages in areas, so you have extra flexibility, so you don't have to spend your turn giving up an action, giving up a die for 2 workers because you have that nuance and that flexibility and gives you just more powers than others. That's incredible. Going up on the turn order track with those boats, gathering goods, giving you flexibility of actions because you have a ton of goods at all times, and giving you the advantage of turn order so you're frequently going first, picking what you want first. That's strong too. Getting a strong pasture with tons of animals. You have a 5-point pasture filled with sheep, and yes, you will absolutely score 100 points for that pasture by the time you put every single thing down it. It can be incredibly impactful. I don't know if it's actually 100, but there's a lot of points for that singular pasture if you can narrow it down, but you might have to dabble in first player as well, so you actually have first advantage of gathering those sheep before someone else takes your sheep from underneath you. Getting those extra actions in the castle tiles, again, huge. You get points for filling out the areas, you get pure extra actions, so why not do so when you can? It's advantageous to do so. And then of course there's the buildings and the mines. The mines just give you income every single round, because every single round you could spend 2 money every single turn to buy one of these tiles from the center, 2 silverlings, and that can be impactful because again, you have 50 actions at the base, but you need more like 80 actions, 90 actions to actually fill out your tableau. And so it's all about how you earn those extra actions, because many of the things you do will give you extra actions, but you won't get to 90. Maybe you'll get to 70, 75, and so every extra action you can squeeze out of the game is another thing you're able to do. So gathering those mines early on, having that silverling income, being able to buy from the central market on a regular basis and just earn the tiles you want and place them down, that's absolutely huge and gives you a lot of flexibility. And then there's the buildings. The buildings, each of those 8 buildings or 9 buildings, depending on what expansions you're using, each of the buildings are going to give you a different degree of something else you can do. You want extra silverlings to buy from the center? Go ahead and grab some banks, place them down. You want buildings that reward you you want buildings that give you extra tiles as you place them down? Absolutely, for every single color that exists. You want buildings that give you extra workers so you never have to cash in a die and you can use those buildings instead. They have those as well. Every single building gives you a different way to give you an extra action to improve your economy. And they fill out these areas over here, giving you a lot of ways to place those buildings down and just get a ton of extra actions in the game. Everything in this game, everything in the Castle of Burgundy is something that I want, and you will be able to pursue multiple pathways as well. It's not about picking a single thing and doing it, it's about picking one thing you want to dominate in to get those extra points, to finish out the areas, to finish up your regions, to get bonus points over here. You definitely want to specialize to a degree, but you will do a lot of everything. You will usually be able to get a lot of different areas of the game complete. One area fully, maybe 2 areas fully, a bunch of areas partially, and potentially trying to avoid one area so you don't waste your time in inefficiencies. Going up in the boat track if you're going to be in last place the entire time anyway might not be worth those extra crates. Dabbling in the farm animals, if you're not going to actually escalate and fully complete a pasture, is just a little bit inefficient. So you kind of want to choose the areas where you're not going to heavily dive down to, choose the areas where you are going to dive into, and choose the areas that you're going to dabble in, and that will give you the pathway towards victories that you want. And there's lots of dice mitigation in the game. You start the game off with workers, and you can earn more workers through buildings you place, through trading in a die as an action. You can make sure that you have the dice available, the actions available in your central depot and your goods to ensure that you always have something for almost any die count that comes up. You want to be very mindful of the marketplaces that are clearing because you can't control what you roll. 6s are not better than 1s in this game. 3s are not better than 4s. There's no question of what's better. It's a question of what's better given the situation on the board. There's not an inherently better number. And so you want to be mindful of the marketplaces and plan around that in terms of what you can prepare. You also can buy technologies that will give you extra actions, that give you that flexibility to move around the bad die rolls. This is one of the games that has one of the biggest degrees of dice mitigation present in any game I've seen. There's lots of ways to prepare around the fact that you cannot control for what you roll. You can only control for the marketplace around what you roll and whatever you roll, that you have a backup action for it. And the game has crazy, powerful turn potential. There are turns where you'll just get a ton done. The nature of the escalating actions. You only have 2 actions a turn, but you'll be able to do more than that. You'll be able to use your silverlings to buy something from the center market. Place that building down, which allows you to place one of your own buildings from your depot down the market. Use your second action to go ahead and turn some goods, earning that silverling to buy from the market. You'll be able to cascade into 4, sometimes 5. Can you actually do 5? I don't know if you can do 5. For sure, 3 and 4 actions you can easily cascade into on a turn, doubling the potential value of a turn, and it feels powerful when you do so. And so the game just gives you that flexibility. It gives you the constriction, but it also gives you the flexibility to move around it, which is very satisfying, and you get the perfect amount of stuff done in this game. Everyone's going to differ in what they like to get done in a game, but for me, I find the number is 75 to 85% of what you can do, meaning if you let a player get everything done, if you let a player completely build out absolutely everything they wanted, you don't leave the player wanting. You don't leave the player wanting more, to want to dive into again, to improve their game, to get more done. You always want to cut them off a little bit so that they get a lot done, but not everything, so they have a reason to continue to dive in and to try different strategies. If I get to do everything my first game, I won't dive back in. But if you get a player leaving too little done, then also it doesn't feel satisfying. It feels like you weren't able to actually get somewhere. And I find for me, the Castle of Burgundy hits that perfect sweet spot. Every single time I play this, I get close enough that I feel that just a drop more and I could have gotten more done. That's 75 to 85% of everything possible. The fact that I can get a ton done but not everything, it gives me that perfect amount of wanting more. The Castle of Burgundy is a phenomenal point salad engine. As far as what I don't like, there's only 2 things. One, not that big a deal, and one, arguably more so. The first one is the fact that the art of the game has never really worked for me. This is a game that's had 2 primary editions, and again, a third one coming on GameFound now as we speak. But for the prior 2 editions, I don't like the art or the production of either. The production part is fine. I don't dislike it. It's not that impressive either for a game that is this amazing. And the art for both versions of the game has always been blah. It's not something that appeals to me personally. It may appeal to you. It's just I haven't liked the art of either version of these games to date. The second thing that matters more, because bad art is not going to make this amazing game bad, the second thing that matters more to me is that while I don't mind the luck in this game, while I don't mind the fact that you're rolling dice and you have to plan around it and you will have plenty of mitigation for it, that holds true for 95% of the game. Where it doesn't always hold true is that last round of play, and that last few turns where bad die rolls can come down to winning or losing. There's a lot of mitigation, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of ability to change or adjust around how you roll, but in the final turns, sometimes the economy gets a little tight. Sometimes you've already done whatever trade-ins, you've used your last workers to get those final actions that you need on your board, and sometimes you just need a 3, 4, or 5, you're rolling 2 dice, you need any of those and you'll be fine, and let's pretend that happens, and then you get that double 6. And there's not much you can do. It's the final turn of the game. There's no more planning or adjusting around it. While I think the luck in Castle of Burgundy is very well done in the sense that it gives you a degree of luck, but it gives you, the player, plenty of agency around how to adjust for it, I do think those last 2 turns sometimes do feel like, couldn't I have rolled something better? Couldn't I have rolled anything different? Like, I rolled 7 6s this round. Could I just not get a double 6 on the last turn of the game? That is where I do find sometimes, especially in a tight game between players who are being competitive, the final turns of the game can feel a bit affected by the luck. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, feeling restricted by the dice in general. While for me it only comes down to those last few turns, this is a game where the dice control what you do. The dice give you all the control, and if you don't like dice placement, this is not going to change your mind, or at least I don't think it'll change your mind. Dice placement is the core aspect of what this game is doing. If you don't learn that sense of how to adjust around the luck, of how to plan around the fact that you don't control the roll, you just control the rest of the game around it, then this is not a game for you. It absolutely has you rolling dice to define your actions every single turn of the game. And secondly, you do want to commit to finishing things. This is not a game you can wander ambiently through it, just grabbing whatever tile works for you. There are strategies in terms of what you have to try to complete, in terms of being a completionist in 1 or 2 regions in order to get those extra bonus tiles, in order to complete your areas. You do not want to do things halfway here. You will have to do some things halfway, but most of the things you want to try to be as efficient and completionist as possible, picking your multiple lanes and getting as much done within it. This is not a game for ambient strategy of choosing whatever works for you in the moment. You have to be planning around things. As far as final thoughts on Castle of Burgundy, I said in the beginning that my opinion of this might be affected by nostalgia. It is one of the longest lasting in my collection, one of 2 games left from my initial purchase of games 10 years ago, and it has lasted for a reason. The Castle of Burgundy is a phenomenal experience. Every single time I play it, I'm reminded of how much I like it and why I like it so much. It is just satisfying to build out your regions, to gather your scoring tiles, to have the variety of boards, all giving you different ways to dive into it. There's team boards as well, as far as boards you can pair up with others. There's just tons of options for you here in terms of the way you can dive into different engines, build out different duchies, gather different tiles, have a ton of flexibility in front of you, a ton of options as far as what you're trying to do and how, of which pathways to go down, of which science tiles to see. Some of the expansions I haven't even dove into yet because I just haven't felt the need. This is such a ridiculously good experience, and sure, it might be biased by the nostalgia of a game that's lasted that long, by a game that I've seen so many versions of it, but at the same time, there are many games that have also left my collection because I've seen them too much, and the Castle of Burgundy has not hit that point, and I do not think it ever will. Maybe it will, I make no guarantees. Games do leave sometimes because I just play them too much, but this is one of the most satisfying games I have in my collection, my number 2 game of all time as of 2021. I love the Castle of Burgundy. I recommend the Castle of Burgundy to basically anyone. If you say you hate dice placement, I think it might just not be a game for you. But if you like Euros, I think this is phenomenal. If you want to see if you like Euros, I think this is worth trying. I do recommend it at the 2 and 3 player count, preferably. At 4, it might run a little long. Honestly, even 2 as a first game might be the best way to start this one off, but the Castle of Burgundy is an excellent game that I'm glad to continue to see this one being reprinted again and again, because there is a demand for a game this good that has lasted this long and continues to hold up. As far as other game recommendations, did I give a rating? I may not have given a rating. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. This is an absolute 5 out of 5 for me. Hopefully that was clear the entire time. This is an amazing game. It's an amazing game. It's a 5 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, I have two. The first is going to be Grand Austria Hotel, which very much, when I first played the Grand Austria Hotel, both times I played it, I only played it twice, but both times I played it, it very much felt like the Castle of Burgundy to me. It very much felt like it hit those same notes. A different game, but it kind of had the same feel as far as what I'm doing, as far as the dice I'm rolling, as far as how I'm trying to plan around it, how I'm trying to mitigate around the luck. The Grand Austria Hotel is a great game that very much felt like the Castle of Burgundy to me. And if you want to level it up a notch in terms of the degree of tightness around the game while still dealing with dice placement, both Grand Austria Hotel and this game have dice placement, is The Voyages of Marco Polo. Another dice placement game which you're trying to wander around the map, using your dice for a variety of ways to manage your resources, to get where you need to go, to gather what you need. The Voyages of Marco Polo is a very, very tight engine, different feeling than the Castle of Burgundy, but still hitting the same high notes of dice placement with a lot of strategy wrapped around it. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.